Everyone, welcome to Podcast Mark. I'm Mark Grasse, and today I have a good friend, Kevin Oldham, on my podcast. We're talking stuff. I think we should talk about self-development and kind of the intersection between self-development, professional development, and just business in general, marketing. But we don't have to. We can just talk about, being alive if you want. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be on Podcast Mark.
Yes, and we were just talking about the slogan, the share everything, because I'm sure this show probably confuses a few people just because it's everything else I do has a specific theme, right? It's like I have digital marketers podcast, all marketing, and then I actually do the In the Garage podcast by carparts.com. It's all auto culture and industry.
Mm-hmm.
And this one I was like, you know what? My favorite conversations most of the time are the ones where we're BSing about self-development, fatherhood, and family life, and the insanity of everything going on.
The entire catastrophe, as you like to think about it. It's like the whole enchilada, the whole mess of life, and the beauty, and the disaster. And I don't know, man. I love it. I love it. So I'm excited that you have no format for this show. That's beautiful.
Oh, it's zero. It's just we'll figure it out. We'll talk. What's funny is I originally hated this format. When I originally started doing podcasting 10 years ago or whatever, I was like, oh man, can't they just have a structure? I want to know what's coming. That's good branding and brand styling, but doesn't necessarily lead to any open conversation. So this is supposed to, break that silence. And also, I think talking about catastrophe and kind of what's happening these days is much more acceptable than it used to be, because it used to be like, shut up, we're in the richest place on the planet, you have nothing to complain about, things are going great. And now it's kind of like, oh well, maybe not so much.
The reality is we all have problems, right?
Yeah,
we're all carrying around awesome stuff in our backpack, not awesome stuff in our backpack. And that's kind of a metaphor. It's not a metaphor that I created. It was from a George Clooney movie. Did you ever see that?
No, which one?
Where he was like, I don't remember, I think it was called Up in the Air or something, but he would come in and give talks, and he's like, here's my backpack. And it's metaphorically, we all carry around a backpack in life that's full of stuff. That stuff is, the awesome things in life are rocks that a lot of people refer to, whether it's, your family, your faith, your biz, whatever's important to you, yourself. And then you also have the other rocks that maybe you don't want to carry around. It could be something like you're battling, cancer. It could be that, so a loved one just died. It could be all these things. And guess what? That's the human experience. And that's what makes it so beautiful, is the fact that there's both.
You need it all. Yeah. Well, and you have to have it all. And I think what, a lot of what you described, I think is, the shadow, right? I've done some of the Carl Jung shadow work. And what I realized was it's just we're the repressed feelings that we're like, no, I don't want to feel like that, or I don't want to be like that. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm not. And so I'm going to act, but your actions will tell exactly how you really feel, right? All those bad feelings are impacting maybe every decision that you're making, and you've just decided I'm not like that, and so you have no control over your actions. So you have to incorporate that, and you have to identify it. I always say the bad things you think are bad. Let's say that you're inherently greedy, which I think maybe we all are, right? We just want to collect everything for ourselves. But let's say that you say, well, greed is bad, so I'm going to say that I'm not greedy, and I'm going to act like I'm not greedy. And then, but when it comes time to actually make the big decisions, you're probably being greedy. And since you haven't addressed that issue specifically, your greed, then how are you going to fix it? How are you going to not let it impact things? So it's, you have to bring it out open. And like we were talking about before, which is how we've been taught to separate personal life from business life. This is my personal life. Oh, I'm a good dad, and I'm a, ethically responsible citizen, and I'm blah, 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 blah. But in business, I'm hardcore, and I will fire you if you don't do what I say, and blah, blah. And it's just no.
You don't have to be Jekyll and Hyde, man. As a matter of fact,
can't be.
Yeah, it's unhealthy. I don't know.
Well, not
keep
just unhealthy.
Right.
Oh, it's Well, it's just what we've been taught. We've been taught that that's the
Yeah.
acceptable way to be. Like you could be ruthless in business and you could be horrible and it's okay because in reality you're a good person. It's like you're
Yeah.
probably impacting way more lives in your job than you are in your family. Your family, yeah, you can
Yeah.
impact. But so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how do you do ethical business or moral business.
And for me, it's not hard at all. I mean, I'm in the Midwest. I was born in Topeka, Kansas, live in Kansas City, and I've always had that like Midwestern kindness. My mom and dad raised me awesome, right? But my mom was one of these folks that got to know everybody and genuinely cared about them, like at a deep level. And I'm definitely my mom's son. And so it's never really been a thing for me. Don't get me wrong. Like there's been times where I've had to make hard decisions. But the difference I think between, somebody who maybe separates those things from, how you would do it at work versus how you do things at home. Those decisions, like if I have to let somebody go from their job, which is probably the hardest thing that you can do as a leader, I wear that pretty hard. Like I genuinely, I'm like, okay, did I make a bad hiring decision?
Mm,
Sometimes it's economic or something, and there's nothing that I can do about it. But maybe I caused the economic scenario that led to them not being employed anymore. And so for me, it's all the same. It's like, man, if I have to have a tough conversation with my kiddo, I'm probably going to feel like crap. Same if I have to have a tough conversation with one of my team members, I'm going to feel like crap. It's gonna feel the same to me,
yeah.
you know, um, because I care, and that's just the way that I was raised and wired. So for me, there's really no difference. It's hard. I don't like it when I'm not a big conflict guy. I don't know about you. I
You
don't
know
like
what? I
conflict's
didn't
not a
used to
fun
be.
place.
I,
Yeah.
I actually used to always avoid as much conflict as possible. And honestly, I'm a
Yeah.
pacifist. Like I don't
Yeah.
like any form of violence. And so
Mhm.
but I had to realize that because I think I had convinced myself that it's just like, no, it's business. You got to be hardcore and you got to be tough and you got to be
Right.
all these things. And so you put on this, you know, bullshit armor. And then you're like,
Yeah,
no, I'm
for
like this.
sure,
I'm like,
man.
why? It
Yeah.
makes you feel bad. It's not good in general. But I don't want to say that you don't have to make hard decisions because you do. And honestly, a lot of times when you do have to let somebody go, it's a necessary thing, and it's actually good on both sides.
It is. It is. It's like, I had one of my hardest, I say top three hardest conversations in 2023. There was a gentleman who'd been here, worked with me at our previous job, came here from day one, and we just didn't need to employ his talent set anymore. Like it just didn't make sense to have somebody full time. And that was like that was the top three hardest conversation of my career. And, it still weighs heavy. But the reality is, as we look forward about 6, 7 months, is he's in way better shape. He's got his own business rocking and rolling. I'm sure he's simplified his life, and that's awesome. Like, and so while there's temporary pain and sadness associated with it, just like you said, ended up being better for us, ended up being better for him. Just that short-term pain, sometimes we don't see that. And I've been in that position too. Like, I don't know about you, but it's good to get fired at least once in your life so that you know what it is like when that happens. And so
Yeah.
I worked for a company that went away. As I like to say, I went to the recycle bin. I went to outplacement sourcing, or I don't even know what it was. Didn't
Whatever.
matter. I was unemployed with my colleagues, right? I didn't have a job and it wasn't my choice at like 25. So thankful that happened to me,
Hmm.
particularly at a younger age when the stakes were lower. I didn't have dogs. Those were my dependents. I didn't have a wife, didn't have kids. And so that's
And even
helpful
then it
to go
was
through
tough.
those.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Emotionally, I mean, financially, I came out ahead. I got a severance, got a job, within a couple months. Like it was good, but it was still stressful, and it was still. I'm super thankful for it, and I tell people, I'm like, man, I hope you get fired at some point in your life sooner rather than later if you ever decide that you're going to be a leader, so that you know what that is like. You have
Mm,
the empathy and you know what it's like to sit down on the other side of the table and have to have that conversation because you've been that person, right?
yeah.
And then you're like, oh man, this is big. This is big. I'm here
Yeah.
to alter this person's life right now, potentially forever.
Yeah, but it's funny too because it's kind of like people who want to stay in a position where they're uncomfortable and they don't like the work and they don't like the people and they don't like their manager and it's just like, what are you doing? You're spending 8 to 10 hours a day here. You spend more time with these people than you do with your own family, and you're miserable. Like, I understand the need to pay the bills and everything, but it's like, have you tried to find something that you enjoy? Have you looked around? Because even if it is a paycheck and everybody has to get paid, you could find places where it makes sense. And honestly, the places where it makes a ton of sense a lot of times are small businesses, and that's one of the things I'm kind of refocusing on myself, where it's just like, how can I support people like me that have a small business that are just trying to help their community and their customers, and instead of billion-trillion-dollar corporations that are destroying everything. Like, how do we do that? And so for employees, I always tell people, I'm like, you know what, who needs your service more than Dell or Nike or whoever, is your local mom and pop who doesn't know how to make a website, and they need help too. And actually, you could have all the control you want, because anything you volunteer to do, they're going to say, yes, please do that. I don't even
it's way better than
I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, of course I want you to make our TikToks. Like, that sounds great. Like, I'll be the hippest 65-year-old knitting class online. Like, let's go. So I think it's definitely not a bad thing either, because it's I think the closest I had to being fired, I would say, because I've typically resigned. I think that's, and I just left a digital marketer, and that was 2.5 years. And that's for me, like, some people hear 2.5 years, like, oh, that's a pretty good stint. I'm like, that was the longest job I've ever had.
You're like, hold on, I was breaking records every single day.
I was like, man, I am pushing the limit. I'm going the distance. And not that it was
a career, 2.5 years. I'm done. Isn't that the average career of like an NFL player? 2.5 years.
Hey, there you go. So I'm just following the NFL careers, man. I'm like, man, I did it. I'm like running down the street cheering. Like,
2.5 years. That's 26 consecutive months.
I'm thinking of my,
or actually longer than that. It'd be like 36, 36, about 30 consecutive months. That's huge, man. Good job.
Oh yeah. Well, I'd say, even thinking about college, because you think about college, like, I was going in the summer, so technically it was the same as like my entire college career as far as I'm concerned. More hours, definitely. So I'm like graduated from college again. I feel fantastic.
Every time I come in here, I'm blown away, because like today I'm breaking a record. Like, this company's been around for 9-something years, and I'm like, man, this is definitely the longest I've done anything. Like, thinking about coming up on a decade a year from now, like, that is a really bizarre thing, because like you, like, I never really stayed anywhere very long. I've got a few years on you, and I think I'm at like tip of the spear. My dad jokes about this. My brother's only 7 years older than me. He's like 55 or something, right? And he worked at Procter and Gamble for 25 years, and now is like a COO of a digital marketing MarTech company, much smaller. Dude's had 2 jobs. He had that job and an internship in college at Procter and Gamble, and then boom. My dad had like 3 or 4 companies he ever worked for. And I was kind of at the beginning of this, hey, like, you don't have to be it somewhere forever. You can, and it probably is smart for you once you feel like you've delivered as much value, or you've got, like you said, got as much of an organization as you feel like you could, to just go elsewhere, right? And so it was kind of a joke in my family that I was always hopping, even though I had stints that were 5, 7.5 years. I had some longer. Oh, I had a longer, but then I also had some 1 or 2 year, gigs. And that's definitely changed now. Like, nobody stays somewhere for a super long time. It doesn't feel like it.
Well, you hear it all the time, and it's and for small business especially, and this is actually something I'm going to start talking about online, which is small successful businesses that have happy staffs and happy customers, stop selling your business. Like, it sounds like a great idea, and you think that the big payday is going to lead to Mai Tais on the beach, and it's like, no, you're you're a crazy person. You're an entrepreneur. Like you're just going to start this whole mess over again. And then on top of that, you have to start from scratch. You lost all your people, and your company that you spent who knows how long building is now just another cog in a giant machine that doesn't give a crap.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why don't we just keep helping people, and maybe you automate some more? Maybe you make it, maybe you let go of the ego a little bit, and it's not just, well, and even for small businesses, you think like, oh, well, small businesses, like they get that big payday, like that'll be great. But even at the larger level, like honestly, some of these guys died. Like if you look at the, Zappos, the Zappos founder.
I know, that was such Tony Hsieh. I read that book, man. That was heart-wrenching. That was hard. Did you read his book?
No, I didn't read his book, but the story behind how he kind of just, dissolved.
It was, man, that struck me. I mean, that really did. It was part of the reason that we started. It helped play into this new business venture then, and VUCA Fit, because I was like, man, the mental health aspect of entrepreneurs isn't really that great. It's just not. I mean, in the aggregate, if you look at entrepreneurs, we got a lot of substance abuse issues, a lot of issues, like just a lot of issues. And it's like, man, when people decide that the ultimate solution is that, their life's going to end, like that's really, really sad, particularly once you've quote unquote, made it, right?
Yeah. Well, that was always the thing. It's like, oh, you make it, and now you don't have to work ever again. And now you'll just chill, I guess.
Like, with no sense of purpose and a big bag of, Daddy Warbucks cash. I mean, it's like, what's the point, right?
Yeah. Well, and now you could buy anything. So who gives a crap, well, now I kind of think about it.
It won't fill you at all.
No,
it will leave you still probably feel more empty, because you're like, wow, I thought this was going to fill me and it didn't. Dang it. Now what?
Yeah, no, and so many people have to go through all these iterations, because I went through that personally, and that's what led to my big transformation, was kind of achieving all these stupid things, and then you're like, oh crap, I did all the things that I thought I was supposed to do, and I don't feel any better at all. And now I have to identify that issue, because I'm like, well, this is what I thought I was supposed to do, and it's you're supposed to do whatever I think helps the most people all the time.
I agree,
because that's what we enjoy. Like there's nothing better to me than teaching somebody how to do something, and then they do it, and then you're like, and it worked,
that was
and
cool.
they succeed.
I know.
And then it's like, oh, that was a better feeling than anything I personally do, right?
Absolutely.
Well, it's like having kids.
Yeah, very similar and different.
Yeah, well, you're just like, man, sometimes my sons will do things and I'm just like, man, that's
cool.
Kicking ass. I'm doing good. Like this is.
You do. I mean, I feel the same way. Our son is 12, and we have like adult conversations. He's doing like real world stuff, and I'm like, man, this is really, really cool. And I can't take all the credit. I mean, like I say, it take a village to raise a child. My wife, obviously, huge, and then our loving family and all those things, friends. Culture shapes kids, but ultimately we're guiding them. We're one of their biggest sources of influence, and it is super freaking cool when your kiddos do something that maybe you taught them or you led them to learn on their own, and they start to blossom.
Oh yeah, or they evolve.
Wow, that's really cool.
They're like, oh well, I showed them how to do this, and then they took it and did something even better, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I didn't even think of that. Like that's it shows you that like the teaching aspect is just as much about learning as it is about trying to teach people things. I think that's why I enjoy doing all the courses and stuff, because it's like, what can I learn just by examining, like systematically coming up with a process for how I do something, and then we'll see if I could teach it. And a lot of times it turns out that something I think is really simple might be super duper complicated. And then you learn like, oh, well, good news, you're more advanced than you thought. Also, tone it back a little bit. And you're like, okay, that's another lesson there.
It is.
But it's an adventure, I'm super excited, because right now, I just did the big resignation thing like 3 days ago or something, and it's like every day that has passed,
like 3 days ago.
I was just like, every day that's passed, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. It's I think I need that final validation of like, are you an employee or are you a business owner? And I'm like, okay, all right, Lesson
Now I'm a
learned.
business owner.
I'm a business owner.
Now I'm a business owner. Yeah. I don't know about you. I don't make that good of an employee. It's kind of funny. I had a company with a partner back in like 2006, marketing company in the real estate space, and then took a job where, I ended up working my way up to chief marketing officer of a global company. But that like 7.5 years that I was there, almost 8 years, I was like a lion in a cage, man. Like it was really freaking hard for me. To have to go to a specific where like it was just really hard. Like to have to go from entrepreneur to employee. I was like, man, I couldn't wait to like go do this entrepreneurship thing myself. Well, I probably stayed like 5 years too long. 5 years too long. Probably. And I told them from day one that I wanted to own a part of the company that I was going to help them build, and it just never materialized. So I left.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of where I was, because it's well, I'm not going to go into super details, but if I can't benefit from growth, or if the growth isn't happening and it's not my fault, like either way, it's like, okay, I feel like I'm standing still. And sometimes you look at people and you'll be like, oh, well, where's this person today? And you're like, oh my gosh, they're in the same spot. They're just sitting.
They haven't moved.
They haven't gone anywhere. And you're like, well, I hope
I call that being on the sidewalk. It's like, man, you're just kind of walking down the sidewalk, going through life, and the sidewalk's leading you. You're not looking at the places that you can turn right or left or whatever. You're just like walking down the sidewalk, living an unintentional life, as I like to say. Which for some people, that's perfectly fine, right? Like we have to acknowledge the fact that not everybody's a psychopath like we are.
People don't have to keep moving every 10 seconds.
I mean,
I actually envy them a lot of the time.
Dude, that's where I was getting ready to go. Like some of the happiest people I know are on the sidewalk. They have amazingly simple lives. I'm sure their resting heart rate is so freaking low, and that their level of complexity that they've created is probably minimalized, right? And I think that there's beauty in that as well.
Like, it's amazing, And that's actually
people like us who are doing 100 different things. They're like, dude, you're a freaking sociopath. Why? Like, how can you do that? Like, why would you do that to yourself? And it's just like, I think how we're wired. Well, you're born one way, you're probably raised a certain way, and that's just like, you come out and it's like, all right, I'm this adult contributing member to society, and here's how I'm going to contribute. And we need people who are on the sidewalk. We need people who are creating the sidewalks and the roads. We need it all, right? And
you need the visionaries. Well, because I think at the end of the day, like we're all kind of lazy, right? Like if we could do less work.
Oh yeah, if I could have slept in this morning, there's a hell yes, I would have slept in this morning. 100%.
Well, and you'll see some people who'll just be like, you'll talk to them, they'll be like, oh yeah, how's your day been? And, oh, I woke up, I took a meditative walk in the woods, and then I did this, and then I worked for a little bit, whatever. And then I did this, and you're like, that sounds like a dream. That sounds like how I would plan out a whole vacation. Like they're not, and what you start to realize, you're like, well, I could just do that. I don't have to fill 12 hours a day with work. Not that I don't do that.
So here's an interesting like thought experiment, and it's going down like literally as we speak. So my birthday is next Thursday. I don't know when this episode. My birthday is February 8th.
Oh, and so Monday. So
I never celebrate my birthday. Never. Like I've never. Last year was the first year that I even put my birthday on social media, because I always like, I don't want these single serving obligatory happy birthdays.
Yeah.
But this year I decided to do it like to raise money for Parkinson's, because that's what my mom passed away from, right? And so when I did that, then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna block off my day. It says take day off and FAFO. That's awesome. Around and find out, right? And then I'm like layering in things that are for me that day. And the funny thing is, I keep looking at things and I almost feel guilty. Like I have this big day. I'm in the middle of a couple of pretty monumental things business-wise that require my full attention. I have a fully stacked week, and then I got this day, and it'll be interesting as time goes. Like I booked a lunch with somebody who I wanted to have lunch with, somebody who hell yeah, right? Boom, like that's a hell yes. I think we're gonna get a massage. But then the question is, as the day goes on and the demands of my companies creep back in, will I be able to actually just say, F it and put it over there. I don't think I will be able to. Like, I'm not wired that way.
I'm going to challenge you too, because I think you should. And I think, if you, and how I started thinking about this was if you just make it another meeting, because we don't want to miss our meetings, right? Like that's super important.
It's an all day meeting. I'm in a board meeting, right?
Yeah. Just say just pretend that you had this big thing, big event that you were supposed to go to and you were supposed to prepare for, and they got canceled. And so your day was going to be gone anyways. And so this is just replacing that. Then that's helped a little bit, because it's even with like working out and stuff where you're like, well, I could take 45 minutes and go to the gym and I'll feel way better and I won't feel guilty that I didn't do the thing I told myself I would do, instead of sitting and sending some emails or building some graphics or whatever the heck I'm doing. Am I better off? Like, did I contribute that
and
much?
One day doesn't matter, right? Like one day,
who cares?
And if my businesses can't go on without me for a day, do I really have businesses or do I have glorified jobs? I got somebody who checks my email, my assistant, like she triages everything. Like nothing's gonna burn. Not a single thing is gonna burn. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this goes, because I guarantee as next week progresses, there's going to be demands for my time. And whether or not I treat myself well enough to say, you know what? No, or hey, oh yeah, this client is somebody I wanted to meet with, or prospective client, and today's the only time they can meet, right? Or I may not get the deal.
There's always some.
I'm going to do my lunch. I'm going to do my family duties. I'm going to get a massage, and I'm going to take care of Kevin that day.
Do it.
That's what I'm going to do. So
I'm going to be mad if you don't do it. Because
no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I've got one lunch. I got one meeting, and the meeting's a fun one. I'll probably cancel it.
Yeah. And do it, and you'll feel great. And the next day you'll take care of that crap, and it's not going to be a big deal anyway. Or you do the stuff the day before, which you probably do when you have a big thing going on anyway. It's the exact same situation. No, and honestly, I never would have probably been like this. And I told you about my last podcast, which I suggest everybody go listen to, because it was brutal. But he was just had zero tolerance for it, because I was like, well, that would make me feel bad because, and he's like, no, stop it. Like, he just kept on calling me out every time. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. He was almost disgusted. He's like, well, what you're saying doesn't coordinate with my two purposes, which is to spend as much time with my family as possible and expand my network. Like, those are the two things. So if they don't fit into those two purposes, then I don't feel bad about anything that goes on with them, because they aren't going towards the two purposes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so freaking simple. Like,
that's what I was gonna say. It's simple. It's so simple. And sometimes these best things, it's like, man, they're so simple. Whether it's a mental model or a sense making framework, it's like it's like or buy back your time, or gap in the gain. You don't even need to read these books. All you gotta do is know the title, and you're like, oh yeah, I can buy back my time by hiring people. Oh, gap in the gain. I can live in the gain and look at how far I've come, versus looking backwards and being like, dude, I haven't accomplished what I want to accomplish yet, man. Living in the gap. No, live in the game. Look at what I've done. Look back.
Does it serve your purpose? Because honestly, like for you, if you're saying that your mental health matters and your the best version of you is actually going to contribute the most to your family and your business and your customers and everything, then it's like, okay, that's a good purpose. So you not doing the things that are going to contribute to that are actually super detrimental and don't serve anything. And it's just like, and he just kept on saying it. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Well, and then when I did that too, and I'd be like, and you'll see it on the video, I'm like, he's like, what's wrong with you? Like, you don't have to feel bad about this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right about that too. And so eventually, by the end of the episode, you actually see I stopped doing it. And I'm just like, no, I'm converting. This is all good. This is great. Problem solved.
It sounds like your episode was therapy for you.
That's awesome. What I said. I actually, the guy I talked to afterwards, I was like, man, that was the most intense therapy session I've ever had. And I've been, it was on the air. It's recorded for everybody to listen to, which is awesome, man. It totally fit in line with the whole share everything that I talk about, because, and just so everybody knows, like, the reason why it's like that is because up until I was probably 39 and a half or something, and I'm 40 right now, I shared nothing. Like, I had these, I always had opinions. I have strong opinions about most things. And so I would just,
I know that to be true from our regular Friday catch-ups. The man's got opinions, and I love that. I'm very opinionated as well. I think that's why we gel so well.
But you said the things. you know? And so
Yeah.
what I did is I just repressed them all, or I just didn't say them out loud. And I just had this ongoing loop of conversation that was just like, just had no input on because I never shared it. And so now I'm just sharing the
Yeah.
things. And I'm like, some of the things that I thought were like, oh, everybody must understand this aspect of this. And then I say it out loud and everybody's like mind's blown. And I'm like,
there's
oh
brain
crap.
matter all over the walls. And you're like, what just happened?
I'm like, I thought I said something obvious. Why? And then it just goes down another rabbit hole of like, okay, now I just realize that I completely don't understand everybody's perspective of something that's very obvious to me.
to you.
To me, just to me, because I never shared it. So anyways, that's why I'm so happy about this kind of stuff, and having friends like you to come on the show and just be like, oh yeah. You know, this is part of it, you know, and grow with
man.
it.
It's a journey. Yeah.
Well, especially for your birthday thing. I love that because I've historically done that. And actually, I think the only party I've ever had for my birthday was this year on my 40th birthday. My wife surprised me with a surprise 80s birthday party. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever had this before. Like this is well, and actually before now, I probably wouldn't have appreciated it because I'd be like, oh, attention, everybody here for me.
I know.
Like I feel bad that everybody had to like drive here and you know they got me a present, like, and then you make all these guilt things to not feel good about something that's really good. And
I was gonna say the people that are there, they love you. They want to celebrate you because they love you. They think you're awesome, you know. And I think that's the thing we got to remember because you know it's funny. My 40th birthday surprise party showed up in my Facebook feed this week, and like for me it was awesome. Like my entire family showed up at my door at my last company, knocked on it. I wasn't expecting them, including my brother from Cincinnati. And they're like, yeah, your day is clear to talk to your assistant or your number two. Like everything's cool. We're going to go shoot automatic weapons now at the firing range. And I'm like,
awesome.
And then you're going to go like, you know, do fill in the blank. I'm like, what? This is awesome. And I think that's when I became okay with birthdays. I was like, hey, people want to, because I want to celebrate.
A year.
Yeah.
One day a year. Like there's literally even Father's Day isn't even like our day really because it's
Father's
like
Day's the worst.
Oh, it's the worst. It's just like all you want is like, all right, guys, here's what we're gonna do.
Father's Day's the opposite of Father's Day. Father's Day is like,
it's really for them. It's like, thanks, you know, we'll make you feel better that we've been working our butts off for 24/7 for our whole lives.
Yeah, I feel better just skipping Father's Day. Like I'm okay with it. That's a funny one. You talk about Father's Day, I'm like,
that's not something to be excited
I've been parenting
about.
for a while. Yeah,
well, I always thought it was it's actually right next to my birthday, so it's always like it's lumped in with my birthday, and it's like, oh, it's Father's Day and your birthday. And I'm like, oh man, like I just want to, like, could you just leave me alone? Like, could I just like
sleep in and lay on the couch?
No, nobody just, and I don't get guilty. You know, like I don't feel guilty.
No, doesn't work that way.
No,
my family does a good job of trying to make it like that, but the reality is, like, particularly if you're somebody who's wired like we are, sitting around and not doing anything isn't really a thing. I don't know about you, but I don't just sit around and not do anything.
Like I'm literally training myself to be like, okay, I could sit somewhere and I could not feel bad about not doing anything, and I could, you know, enjoy myself and relax. You know, usually it turns into like, well, you could be meditating and you could be doing breath work and you should be doing yoga and you could, and it just piles up and you're like, oh no, I just want to chill. And what I found recently is that it used to be TV. I used to be able to sit down, I put on like a movie or something, and then I could just zone out. And now it's like, oh god, that's not working anymore. It's not relaxing at all.
It doesn't. I can't watch movies like unless it's a weekend and I'm like with my son or family or something like that. Like, and I used to work at AMC theaters. Their headquarters is in Kansas City. So in my 20s, they had a marketing company. That's the job that went away. You know, the company went away. And so I used to see movies all the time, big movie buff, have a whole bunch of DVDs from back when that was a thing. And now in life, I'm like, man, to sit down and watch a movie, it doesn't work anymore. Like if I'm at home.
Well, actually, I'll tell you what happens.
I feel guilty with it.
I'll literally have to beat the crap out of myself to make that situation work. So I'll have to go to the gym and I'll have to do high intensity training. And I'll have to do a cold dip, 10-minute cold dip. And then I'll have to do 10-minute spa meditation. And then I'll have to do, it's just like, and then I have to have the house clean because I'm going to feel guilty if the house isn't already clean. And so And then I'll finally sit down, and then you realize like, oh, it's 10:30 at night now. Like there's, I need to go to
I
bed.
don't have enough gas in the tank to watch the movie. I'm just gonna go to bed.
Yeah, just like, and then you're done. Then you're like, well, I'll at least look at TikTok for 15
So why
minutes.
don't we? What is the problem here? Like, I want to tap into this because I don't know how long your show's supposed to go. I actually don't care.
We got a
If
house
you're
show.
trying to tap in 30 minutes, this might go longer. But my point is, why is that an issue? Like, why do you and I assume a lot of people, whether it's, let's just say, taking time for yourself. Okay, let's just put that into a bucket. When you are that person who, I don't know about you, but I got the kids, I got aging dad, I've got, the whole, there's a lot of demands, right? And then it comes to the domain of us. Why is it so freaking hard for us to be like, you know what, champ, you're kicking ass in life. You're doing a good job. You're not dropping the balls. Maybe some of the small rocks are falling to the ground. Those don't matter. It's the important balls and the rocks, the big boulders in life. You're doing a good job. Take an hour and a half or 2 hours to do fill in the blank without feeling guilty. Because guess what? You've worked hard. It's okay. I don't know why that's so hard.
Well, it's shame.
It's historically been hard for me.
It's shame and guilt, and it's probably some childhood trauma that you're not dealing with. Like and that's that's what the last show taught me. Because I was like, no, I'm on top of this. Like I've been doing therapy, I do my meditation, I do my bio reading, I talk to other guys, and I pile up all these things. Like I'm doing better. And then it was just like, no, the guilt and the shame, like that's the real issue. Like if you could figure that out and stop having that happen and just accept everything for the way it is, like man, that's the zen. And it's funny because I've been doing meditation since I was 15, and so I've studied all this stuff, and I was just like, and I never really got it until now, because they're like, no, you just need to be. And it's just like, what does that mean? What does it just be mean? It's like that's it, that's the thing that you already got it. But most of us don't get it, because we say like, well, to be, I need to have all my ducks in a row. Like I need to have my family's in order, my money's in order, my blah 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 is in order. And you're just like, no, that's not it. Like are you alive? Okay, you're alive.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. You're doing it. That the whole thing is just experience, and you don't have to feel bad about anything, because it's all just part of the longer cycle of everything. So not that I do that personally, but it's my goal.
It's both of our goals, right? So
it is
just to be.
Man, if you could just be, and then and I think it does get rooted back to the purpose, right? Because if you said, like Justin was saying, the two purposes, and if it doesn't serve those two purposes, then it doesn't matter. And so I'm like, okay. Wow. So I realized that it's really not having the purpose that is your problem, because if you have the purpose, then there's no reason to feel guilty as long as it's serving the purpose. So it's like, okay, well, me, being the best version of myself so I could help as many people as possible. That's one of my purposes. Then it's like, okay, well, you working out and you taking it easy on your birthday, that's serving that purpose. And literally, if you aren't doing that, you aren't serving your purpose. So that's like,
it's true, man. My infinite purpose is to be the filament in the lives of the people I touch, to be the light. And in order to do that, it requires me to be mentally healthy, spiritually healthy, physically healthy. And I've realized that if any of those things are out of kilter, or my sleep, we were talking about sleep before we hit record, right? I'm pretty proud that I finally got my sleep dialed in after almost a decade of entrepreneurship. Like those things, if those are out of whack, I am shortchanging the entire thing. I might be a shortcut, right? It's like, you got to fill in, fill in the blank done or whatever. But in the aggregate, it's not going to work very, very well for me.
No,
it's just not.
Well, and then everybody else loses too. And that's really for that's the reinforcement you need, because it's for the self-help stuff. Like I didn't do a lot of it like really consistently, because it felt selfish, right? Like, well, my cold dips.
I'm working out for myself. Yep.
And honestly, it's marketing's fault for the most part, because the way that we've kind of marketed fitness over the last 20, 30, 40 years has been like, oh, it's all about aesthetics. Like, it's all about, I got a six pack and
Oh
I got
yeah.
rocking biceps and I got blah 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 blah, so now I'm the man. And it's just like, man, that is not the point at all. The point is for you to feel better. No,
Move
that's
well.
pretty much it. It's just feel
Yeah.
better. It's like, be more
Feel better,
functional,
move through life, well. I mean, that's like my goal, martial arts, yoga, anything, flexibility. Like, I'm past the point of really caring too much if I have like this rock hard body I never have. I want to be in great shape for above average shape for somebody my age. But more importantly, I want to move pain free. I want to have full range of motion. I want to have mental clarity as much as possible, and physical, fitness definitely plays into that. And if I look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I look like the skinniest cyclist in the world is in my optimal state. I don't really care what that looks like. I just want to feel good. And when I feel good, I can live out my infinite purpose. Like, it all just works, right? Otherwise, time out. We got to get things recalibrated. Things aren't working.
Yeah, so. or you die, and that's
you die.
The other
you
issue.
Freaking die. Like, that could happen today to both of us, or either one of us. Like, life is short, die empty.
But you look at a lot of people and you're just like, because honestly, recently a lot of people we know, like, either were diagnosed with cancer or died of cancer. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, that was never even a prospect of somebody. Now it's the number one killer of people under 50 is cancer. It used to be car accidents or heart disease or whatever it is. And it's just like, okay, this is a problem. And on top of the fact that if you died tomorrow, would you feel good about what you did, or how would you feel?
I would.
No, I'm finally like getting there.
Driver, dude. It's like every freaking day I want people to know how much I love them. I want to leave this earth with no regrets, and really nothing that's unsaid. And I try to honor that every day, because life's short, man. Never know when our time is.
But it's a gift. And this is your opportunity. I think a lot of times, well, for the longest time, I always looked at life kind of like a slog. Like, oh man, I remember I was 15 at the time, and I thought I could live to be 80, which means I'm going to have to go through this for another 65 years. And I was
like, you felt like that?
Oh yeah. It was like, well, now I realize just how down I was, because that was just my mentality.
You must have been in a bad place.
Oh man, it was a long, that's just how I was, like, well, another day of being alive, yay. And it was just a slog, and I was just like, this is just how it is. You just keep going until you're dead. And I was never suicidal, so it wasn't like that type of depressive. It was just like this dark existence where it was just like, this is just my purpose, like my job's to get my ass kicked, and then I just do it again. And then I get my ass kicked. And then I do it again.
For 65 years. I'm just going to
then you get sweet release of death. And it's like, no. You're doing it completely backwards. Like, why would you do that? That's not the point of anything we're doing. And it doesn't really contribute to your life or anybody else's to even think like that. So, stop. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Now I get
Treat yourself well. Give yourself grace. That's one of the things that's one of the tools that we've used for our kiddos, for myself, my wife. Like, it's one of those things that we, I've got little things I always say to myself, and give yourself grace. Give myself grace is one of those things. It's like, I'm going to give myself grace on my birthday. I'm going to take that day off unapologetically. I'm going to celebrate the fact that my mother, that's no longer here on this earth, that day gave birth to me, right? And I honor her, and for that, on that day. It's sometimes a highly emotional day with a deceased parent, right? And I'm gonna embrace the hell out of it, and so I'm excited for it, man. I'm gonna have lunch with the guy who showed up to lunch yesterday, thinking that's when lunch was. So he got the
get out of here,
and we'll go have lunch, and then we'll just go get a massage and have a great day, man.
That's awesome.
It'll be good. Well, it'll be good.
I'm gonna follow up with you on that, because if you're not posting pictures of like, here was my day at the spa,
I will.
I feel great. No, and you deserve it, and you should do it more
I do.
often, honestly. I think for me, like I finally decided, because I always thought like, okay, Sunday is family day. I'm not going to work on Sunday. And now I think recently the Pope came out and said like, you know what? We kind of made that up in like 321 AD.
The Pope said that? I was like, yeah, just kidding.
It's Saturday.
It's still in the Bible, but whatever.
It says it. It's pretty clear. The seventh day. Is the seventh day Sunday?
I don't care what the Pope says. You don't get the Pope. The Pope doesn't get to override the holy text, right?
It's been pretty obvious the whole time. I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's all Henry
that
Ford's
makes a lot
fault,
of sense.
Right?
Well, yeah, you get into like even why we have 12 months instead of 13 months and stuff like that. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this whole the whole system is built around dismantling our humanity, turning us into robots. Problem is that now we have robots. Now we have robots. So do you actually need that many people? Just from I mean, that's literally how big business thinks. And it's just kind of like, now we're way more profitable than we used to be, selling way less than we used to sell. So sorry, UPS workers, we don't need 12,000 of you. We just made $90 billion profit, but we could literally retire all of you with $1 million. Won't even hurt us at all, but we're not going to.
We won't.
No, nah. Why would we do that?
Shareholders. Let's give it back to the shareholders. That's the number one thing, right?
Well, maybe we'll talk about corporate greed next time.
That's a whole nother hour conversation.
Oh, an hour. We could have a seminar.
I know.
Maybe we should. There you go. There's your next big idea. Well, thanks so much, Kevin.
Show. Yeah, man, this has been awesome. I'm excited for you and your new journey as well, man. I think
it's been great.
You're gonna do amazing things. You already are. So.
Well, and it's because of people like you, because I think for, the last couple of years and largely due to the job. So I can't even say like having a job was a bad thing, because I've been able to build this huge network of people that I, really enjoy, really respect, really love. And it's not something I've had before. So, and you're part of it.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing, right? Yeah. I mean, we wouldn't have met if you wouldn't have had that job. So
it's crazy. It's good. No. There you go. All right, you get to work and finish all your crap up before your birthday so you can chill.
I will do that.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Just we'll get some business stuff in here. Where should people go to learn more about you or get involved in your, your health journey?
Oh, probably the best place is my personal website, kevinoldham.live, because the guy who's got .com won't respond. So there you go. kevinoldham.live. There's an email. You can sign up for my email newsletter there. I send something every other Thursday, and that's it.
Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much, Kevin. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Always look forward to our talks. And so we'll keep doing it.
Absolutely, brother. Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you all for listening. This has been Podcast Mark. Tune in next time for more things, and we'll figure out what those are when you come back and listen. Talk to you soon. Oh, that was great.